40 years ago, on a typical sunny but cold day in spring at the theatre festival of Dionysus in Athens, my father, Artemidorus, actor, you might remember him, comes on stage as King Pantheus in the Bacchae of Euripides, dressed in a heavy-sleeved gown, padded in the chest and shoulders, since he is like me, a slight man, and I don't know what possesses him. He's famous for his quick changes, wearing his queen Agave underneath. He sweats through, he leaves the stage, he changes masks, comes back on again as the distracted queen, and in the damp gown the sun goes in and he chills to the bone. You would never have known. I've not heard him better. He's famous for his women, especially the crazy ones, Agave, Cassandra, tear-ringers like Niobe, but has no luck this day. This day, the leading man who plays the god gets the prize. He gives a party. Father does not like to leave early in case it shall be misunderstood, so he stays drinking till past midnight. The cold goes to his chest, and on the third night he dies. Though I'm 19 at the time, it is the first death in our house since I have been born, and I'm dazed by it. Just dazed by it. The house turned upside down. Father lying on his bier with his feet towards the door. Mother and grandmother and sister wailing and flinging their arms across him. A small room full of actors and neighbors edging and shouldering in and out to pay respects. The neighbors leave quite soon. Outsiders never know what to say about an actor, but his fellow artists, they hang about. They keep saying how good he was to work with. Nico, always ready to help a friend. My mother can attest to that. Never dried, they said, could keep going through anything. And then they tell some tales that make me stare, not having yet learned that anything can happen on tour. What talent he had! Nico! Poor Artemidorus. A disgrace he was passed over at the Lernaia. Nobody remembers seeing a Polixena done with more feeling, but the lot fell on some poor judges this year. Well, I don't know how long I had known by this time that I had more than he. 3 years. I'm 16 when I see him as Achilles in the sacrifice at Aulis, and I doubt it is new to me even then. He moves well. He can say anything with those hands. His voice is charming. They could have eaten him up. Hardly noticing his Agamemnon, could not wait till he comes back as Achilles. He makes him a delightful youth, charming, sincere, arrogant but too boyish to offend. But the shadow of all that darkness, the black grief beside the shore, the dreadful war yell whose pain and anger scares even the horses, it is close ahead. One ought to feel it breathe. It creeps in my hair where he speaks of his slighted honor, but already I hear another player, hardly yet knowing whom. He had everything the artist needs except the spark of the god. I've been going on with him ever since I can stand. I remember quite clearly playing a Styanax to his Andromache when I'm 6, in The Women of Troy, also by Euripides. Astyanax needs to act, so Father tells me the plot. Promises I won't really be thrown from the walls in spite of all the talk about it. First rehearsal, he sends me out in front. to see the masks as the audience sees them. Climbing up high above the seats of honor, I'm surprised how sad they look, how human. When I'm up there, he does his Cassandra for me. God mad with 2 torches. Oh, he's really marvelous. It is his greatest performance. Everyone agrees. I fight for years to go on thinking him great. And then he changes masks, ready for Andromache. It's the play where they bring her in from the sacked Troy on a cart piled with loot, the child in her arms, just 2 more pieces of plunder, a wonderful bit of theatre. Don't look at the herald, he says to me at rehearsals. When he comes with the news that you must die, you're not supposed to know what he means, though any child would that is right in the head. Now take all your cues from me. First day of performance, I'm still aggrieved there is no mask for me, though I have been told that children do not use them. Never mind, he says, the time will come. Pulling his own mask down, smiling face, going into a solemn one. He's in the prologue as Athene. Outside the Parados, the cart is waiting, drawn by 4 oxen with the gilded spoils of Troy. At last comes the call boy with my father in the pale mask of the shorn-haired widow. He clambers up, somebody hoists me after, he sets me on his knee, and the oxen start. Don't look at the audience, he says to me. You're scared of strangers. Think how they just chopped up your poor old granddad Priam. Now lean on me. Well, that's not how I would direct Styanax. He's Hector's son. I like him, alert and bold, thinking no evil till the time. But my father knows his business. Even the men are sighing as we come slowly into the orchestra, and I hear the little coos and cries of the women floating on this deep bass, and then quite suddenly it takes a hold of me. My father and I are doing this by ourselves with 15,000 people. We will carry them all with us to Troy and make them see us just as we choose to be. I can taste it still, that first sip of power. And then when the chorus comes with the news that I must die, I remember I'm not supposed to heed him, but I think I ought to look sorry for my mother's grief. So I reach out and I touch the mask's dead hair, and at this, a sobbing and a sighing arises from the block where the heteras sit, the prostitutes, the courtesans, the ones who really know the tragedies and who love a good cry more than figs. And when the herald bears me off backstage to die, I think everyone will be there to pay me compliments, but only the wardrobe master's assistant comes in a hurry to strip me naked and paint on my bloody wounds. Father, exiting soon after, runs over to pat my bare belly as I lie and say, good boy, and then he is off again. Quick change, Andromache to Helen of Troy, always the most splendid costume. And then he's on again. And I hear the new voice, bland and beguiling, answering angry Menelaus. So, now the cue comes for me to be brought on dead. They stretch me on a shield, and the 2 extras pick it up, and I give my mind to lying limp as I have been told. The chorus calls out the dreadful news to my granny, Hecuba, lying with my eyes shut, while the herald makes a long speech about my death. I pray Dionysus will not let me sneeze, and there's a pause. And a terrible, low voice says right beside me, lay down the circled shield of Hector on the ground. A hateful thing to look at. It means no love to me. Well, I'm very well rehearsed in this scene, but not with Hecuba. I've seen the mask only. This is Croesus, the leading man, then at the peak of his power, and he does not expect to tutor children. The voice seems to go all through me, making my backbone creep with cold. I forget it is I who's being mourned for. There's no sweetness here in Hecuba. Old pride brought naked to despair, still new to it. At the bottom of the pit, a new pit opens, and still the mind can feel. Cold hands touch my head. And so silence is a theatre above us that I hear quite clearly from the pines outside the murmur of a dove. I'm not yet 7. I think I remember, though no doubt I've mixed in scraps from all sorts of later renderings, Statalos, Philemon, Theodorus, even from my own, but the one thing I do remember for certain is the swelling in my throat and the horror that comes over me. I am going to cry. Gonna wreck the play. Sponsor will lose his prize, Croesus' crown. Father will never get a part again. We shall be in the streets begging for our bread. And worst of all, I shall have to face the terrible Hecuba after the play without the mask. Tears spring from my eyes. My nose is running. I pray that I might die, or that the earth will open. And before I start sobbing aloud, I'm gathered into the arms of Hecuba. The wrinkled mask bent close above, a flute which has been moaning softly during the herald's speech, getting a cue, now wails loudly, and underneath the noise Queen Hecuba whispers, "Be quiet, you little bastard, you're dead." Right away, I feel better. I slide back limp, and as he washes and shrouds me, he neatly wipes my nose. The play goes on to the end. And yet had not the very hand of God gripped and crushed this city deep in the ground, we should have disappeared into darkness and not given theme for music or the songs of men to come. As the extras carry me off, I think we are the men to come. My father has seen it all from the wings, runs on as they slide me off the shield, asking, "What come over me?" "Father, I did not make a sound, I swear." Croesus comes off, stops, stares, releasing the trance, pushes up his mask. He's a thin man, all profile like a god on a coin, but bold. He comes straight towards us and fishes me out, squirming from behind my father's back, all smothered in blood paint, smeared in blood paint and snot. And then he smiles. Yellow teeth. He's not angry. "By the dog, I thought we were finished then." Grimacing like a comedian slave mask. Artemidorus, this boy has feeling, but he also knows what he is about. "What's your name, boy?" "Nico," I said. "Niceratus," says my father. "Victory," says Croesus. A good omen. We shall see. Many scenes like this come back to me as I stand at the door. Now, man of the house, welcoming people come to honor my father. I weep. I did weep, but you see, by this time, my heart had forsaken my father for the God we both served. There's no doubt his heart had forsaken his father when the time came. There's nothing really of choice in this. It is tragedy. Tragedy. You misuse that word today. I fight the gods for him. What a house today, I would say. They must have heard the applause all the way at the Karameikos. Oh, and that business with the urn, it would have melted stone. I saw General Iphicrates crying. There's always something you can say, something true. But the great things that every artist hopes for, the harsh gods closed my mouth upon. He missed them. I know he missed them. I could see it in his eyes. Why not just say them? Just the gods. They have everything and they live forever. Lamprias. Do you remember Lamprias? Nobody remembers Lamprias in Athens, but down around the Argolid they still talk of his mad Heracles and his Agamemnon. At all events, Lamprias is in town when father dies and he owes him more money than most, but is as usual nearly broke, trying to fit up a tour for peanuts. So he offers to take me on as extra. He looks embarrassed. As my mother accepts for me, knowing what I know already, I am better than this. And then he turns away and glances away at my father, and I too have looked at him to see him sit up on his beer and say, "You mad boy." Well, at 19, one is good for nothing in the theatre. Even as third actor, you have to have the range to play not only women and boys, but also warriors and tyrants and old men, and no lad of that age can do it, whereas a good man who has kept his voice in training and his body supple can go on wearing the juvenile mask till he's past 50. I reckon I need 3 years to learn before I'm ready to get good parts and good productions, and for even 3 months my mother cannot keep me idling. We have been left so poor by father's generosity, always ready to help a friend indeed. Let me tell you something. If you ever go drinking with actors, do not be the last to leave the table. Well, Lamprias is grateful that I have accepted and not embarrassed him. Good boy, he says. A real professional, your father's son. The range will come, we all know that. But in the meantime, a tour like this will be the making of you. No artist really knows himself till he's done a tour. When the sun sets, they bury my father. It was a very good turnout. It would have pleased him. When it's all over, we go home, we light the lamps and straighten the room, and then look about us as people do, not wanting to think what next. The scourge of the third-rate tour, father always used to say, is the second actor, the failed one, who makes everyone pay. Well, in this case, father was wrong. Our second actor, Democharis, had already had his taste of honey, and it had kept him sweet. More than once he'd worn the ivy crown, the actor's crown, and he'd come down serving Dionysus all too well in a crown of ivy. By the time I get to Lamprias' house in Piraeus for dinner to meet the rest of the company, he's already pretty drunk. Later on, I help Lamprias carry him home. He's jolly in his cups until we try to put him to bed, and then he grasps my hand and tears up a little. Oh, fair young face, sorrow and death pass you by. There's still some music in the voice. It was Medius, our third actor, who was the failed one. Not yet 6:20, some mocking god had given him a handsome face, the one beauty an actor can do without, and it had brought him some success, I have no doubt. Off stage. Even before we fill first cups, he's telling me about how many splendid roles he has been offered, if only he cared to sell his honor. I knew enough already to guess that he had gone through whatever his honor might fetch before signing with Lamprias, and I fear he sees this knowledge in my eyes. At all events, we rehearse in 2 or 3 modern plays, which I cannot recall, with 3 actors and no chorus, and 1 or 2 classics in case some sponsor wishes to hire us for a festival. We are opening at Eleusis of the Mysteries, then Megara, bypassing Corinthos, where everybody is rich and they think they know what theatre is, and then down around the Argolid. I knocked Medius down that last week of rehearsal. Tried to get on with him, but he takes against me from the start. We're rehearsing in the theatre in Paris, walking up the steps between the benches, when he sees fit to quote an envious piece of bitchery he has from one of his fancy friends about my father. He is bigger than me, but as he has not troubled, as my father made me do, to go to a good gymnasium where one learns to move, when I hit him, I tipped his knee, and he did not fall down very soft. Lamprias said nothing, as Medius was not hurt, but I knew I should be made to pay. My mother sees me off before dawn on the day of departure. She cries a little. I give her a kiss, and then, shouldering my bundle, head off down the twilight street, whistling, to meet the company at Paris, to begin my new life. I'm thrilled, of course, by the chance a year for touring. All over Hellas, men stretch and breathe more easily since an alliance of Thebes and Athens have astonishingly beaten the Spartans and driven them out of Attica. It was that year. But with all this, the troops are forever tramping up and down the isthmus and the Peloponnesus. The cities are working like a pan of yeast, throwing off the oligarchies that the Spartans had set over them. We might run into anything. Still, it was a fine day. And remembering my Aeschylus, I people the glittering waters of the straits of Salamis as we pass with grinding oars, crashing prows, round galleys spilling gold-turbaned Persians into the sea.